He fired me on a Wednesday, 3 sentences that landed like a gavel. The room did not echo. It folded in, quiet as an elevator closing. I stood up, nodded too many times, and told the air I understood. What I understood, honestly, was fury. The hot, certain kind that writes speeches for you, one after another, until you're brilliant and right and everyone else is small. I walked past the receptionist, the posters from campaigns I had led, the glass door that always stuck. Outside, the city was the same. Inside, 1,000 verdicts convened. Pride volunteered to be my lawyer. On the bus home, I counted the ways I had been indispensable. I listed the hours no one saw, the headlines only I could write, the meetings I hijacked for a greater good. He fired me on a Wednesday, 3 sentences that landed like a gavel. The room did not echo. It folded in, quiet as an elevator closing. My name is Daniel. People called me promising, which I heard as prodigy. I never learned to translate compliments into responsibility. I confused loud with brave, quick with wise, and reaction with leadership. In meetings, I leaned forward like a runner in the blocks. If you paused, I sprinted into the silence. If your idea needed time, I gave it none. Later, I learned a phrase I wish I'd known earlier. Rooms get smaller when some people speak. Mine shrank whenever I opened my mouth. I worked at a small creative agency. Good people, careful with words. Our producer built spaces where shy voices could live. Jonah, our strategist, asked questions that turned the lights on. My boss, Eric, spoke like a man carrying glass. Steady, deliberate, oddly kind. My name is Daniel. People called me promising, which I heard as prodigy. I never learned to translate compliments. We were pitching a campaign for a nonprofit that served people who had learned to live with less time, less money, less safety net than most of us ever think about. I wanted bold headlines that punched and stunts that would trend. Jonah wanted to spend a week with the volunteers. We should listen first, he said. Let the problem define the work. May drew a circle on the whiteboard and wrote everyone at its center. Let's not perform empathy, she said. Let's practice it. I smiled the kind of smile that looks like agreement and feels like a shove. I talked about momentum, about windows closing, about our need to lead the client. My voice filled the space. It always did. We were pitching a campaign for a nonprofit that served people who had learned to live with less time, less money, less safety net than most of us ever think about. I wanted bold headlines that punched and stunts that would trend. Jonah wanted to spend a week with the volunteers. After a client meeting that went as badly as it could without lighting a fire, Eric called me in. He spoke gently, which made it worse. He said he valued my talent and feared my pace. He said the client felt steamrolled, the team felt tired, and I felt nothing but the rightness of my own idea. He said we would pause my work, and then he sent the email that ended it. 3 sentences. No dramatic language. Just a door closing with the click of a good latch. I read it 3 times and tried out different tones in my head. If the voice was stern, I was the misunderstood genius. If it was sorrowful, I was the brave one who dared too much. If it was bland, I was the victim of corporate boredom. Pride is creative, can cast you in any role but the true one. I packed my desk in dignified motions, each object heavier than it should be. Dignity is easy when you're certain you were wronged. Repentance is impossible until you doubt that certainty. At home, I opened my laptop and turned my resume into a trophy shelf. Numbers, awards, accounts, wins paraded like soldiers. Not a single name. Not May. Not Jonah. Not any volunteer our nonprofit served. When you curate your life as a museum of victories, you cannot admit a living room where people sit together and speak softly and disagree well. You cannot admit the word we. My mother texted, "How's your heart?" I typed, "Fine," and hit send with the numb authority of a man stamping a form. The apartment felt loud with silence. I told myself that anger was energy, that energy was focus, that focus was strength. I made a list of people who should hear my side and sorted them by how loudly they'd agree. Justice, too, can be an echo chamber. That night, I fell asleep to my own defense. At 2 in the morning, I woke beneath a ceiling that seemed a little lower than before. I scrolled my phone, which is to say I went looking for a mirror that would flatter. Instead, I found an old verse from childhood floating through the algorithm like a buoy on dark water. God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. I flicked it away with a laugh that sounded brave and felt brittle. Another post said, "If you are always the main character, maybe you are writing the wrong story." I turned the screen down until my face was only a suggestion. It is a frightening mercy when a sentence follows you into the dark. Not a thunderclap, not a courtroom speech, just a line that refuses to leave. The verse did not accuse me. It described gravity. Pride is heavy. It sinks the floor beneath you. Humility is lighter. It lets the room breathe. I put the phone face down and finally spoke a small prayer into the quiet. It did not ring with poetry. It was made of surrender more than words. "God," I said to the ceiling, "if I'm the problem, show me. I'm listening." The confession scraped my throat on the way out. Pride prefers eloquence to honesty. I had neither. I had a sentence and a silence after it. The silence did not accuse me. It waited with me. Sometimes God's kindness is simply that He does not rush to fill the quiet we have always been afraid to face. I lay there long enough to hear my breathing remember its work. Somewhere between the fan and the streetlight and the ache behind my eyes, I sensed an instruction. Not a strategy. Not a way to get my job back. Just a word shaped like a gate that opens in, apologize. Not to win. To make things right. I did not like the instruction. I trusted it anyway. Morning arrived with the nuance of cold coffee. I opened a blank email, and the cursor blinked like a metronome for courage. I wrote to May, to Jonah, to Eric, and to the client we had not served well. I wrote what I had avoided believing. That I had led like a spotlight instead of a lamp. That I had pushed to be right rather than to do right. That I had used pace where patience was needed, volume where listening would have saved us all. I added a final line I meant to mean, "If there is anything unfinished I can complete this week, I will free. I want your launch to shine." I hovered over send and heard Pride offer 100 amendments. Clarify that you were also right. Note the circumstances. Mention the pressure. Pride cannot apologize because love might take the seat it wants. I took a breath, folded my arguments, and clicked. All at once the apartment became a sanctuary, not because the light changed, because I had. The reply came minutes later from the client. It did not praise me or scold me. It did something stranger. It invited me to a short contract mentoring their junior creatives on listening. Not pitching, not performing, listening. Same pay, fewer hours. A role built not around my brilliance but around my change. I read it twice, then a third time because grace often sounds like a mistake when you are used to winning or losing. I said yes with hands that shook. I told myself it was a step toward employment. I did not yet have language for what it really was. A step away from needing to be the most important person in every room. When you are given a gentler task, do not despise it. It is an altar disguised as a desk. The first week I met the people our campaign was for. We sat in a room that sounded like a library. Volunteers told stories no headline could carry in 3 words. I took notes until my hand ached, and then I took more. Jonah asked questions that opened windows. May organized the day so no one had to fight for a turn. I spoke last or not at all. To my surprise, I did not vanish. I became accurate. We rewrote the brief from "Look at us" to "We're here with you." The difference is small in print and massive in practice. It rearranges where the light falls. It turns a stage into a table. It makes the circle that May drew on the whiteboard real. Something inside me loosened. My gifts did not die under humility. They stopped burning the furniture. 2 months later, Eric messaged me. He said we could have handled my exit better. He said he had learned since then and that the team had too. He asked if I would consider partnering on a new account. The old surge rose at once. Now you need me. Pride is patient. It waits at the corners of victory as well as defeat. I answered, I'd love to talk. And then I prayed a sentence that has become a habit. Keep me small. Even if the project is big, small does not mean silent. It does not mean passive. It means you remember that a room full of people is better than a room full of you. We set a meeting for the following week. I prepared in a way I never had before. I wrote at the top of my notes, what am I missing? Then I left space to discover the answer. We sat across from the client in a room washed with careful light. I suggested that Jonah lead insights. I asked May to open with process and guard the margins so quiet voices could speak. I offered to present last. This was not theater. It was obedience. Halfway through the meeting, the discussion turned toward attention in the brief. My old instinct woke up and reached for the steering wheel. I set it down. Jonah's angle addresses that, I said. Let's hear it. The room breathed. People sat back in their chairs. The client, who had not smiled much, smiled. We won the account. We won it the way you win a long walk, with pace you can keep and companions you can honor and a destination that still has room when you arrive. We did not drench the moment in fireworks. We calendared the next steps. We cleaned the whiteboard. We said thank you. It was enough. Honor did not arrive when I fought for my seat. Came when I made room for others. I once believed humility meant shrinking until I disappeared. That is not humility. That is fear in a costume. I once believed humility meant never leading. That is not humility. That is abdication. I once believed humility was a synonym for apology. It is not. Humility is stewardship, of gifts, of pace, of words, of other people's attention. It is strength under guidance and confidence under correction. It is a fire in a fireplace, not a wildfire in a living room. Humility does not make you smaller than you are. It makes you sized for the room you share. It resists the urge to turn a table into a stage. It learns to love the light that falls on someone else's face. Pride is weight, humility is air. Not empty, breathable. There is a line I carry with me now. You know it already, perhaps. You may have rolled your eyes at it in youth group or embroidered it on a pillow you never meant to read. It is short enough to hide in your pocket and strong enough to rearrange your day. Humility comes before honor. Say it without hurry. Sit with it as you would with an old friend who tells you only things you can survive. Notice what it forbids. The demand to be seen first. Notice what it invites. The confidence that you will not disappear if you are not center stage. It is not a transaction. Be humble, get honor. It is a path. Learn the way down and you will find out it was the way forward. I have discovered that the verse is less a rule than a rhythm. When I keep it, rooms breathe. When I break it, rooms shrink. Weeks braided into months. The campaign launched, not viral, not noisy, faithful. Volunteers recognized themselves in the work. They told stories to one another that did not need our agency to survive. That is how you know you served. The fruit keeps growing after you leave the garden. My life became less spectacular and more spacious. I mentored. I asked better questions. I kept a little list of people to thank. I learned to send emails that did not audition for applause. I said, "I don't know" earlier and "you're right" faster. On days when I forgot, the world did not end. It reminded me. Sometimes I still feel the hunger to be the loudest. I treat it like any other appetite, something to be fed with better food. I go for a walk. I call my mother, who still asks about my heart. I open the old verse and let it be old. I apologize before my arguments are perfect. I practice being small enough for love to sit beside me. Pride is not a dragon you kill once. It is a stray cat that remembers your door. It returns when you are praised and when you are wronged and when you are tired and when you are brilliant. It says the same thing in different accents. Make it about you. I have learned to answer with the simplest liturgy I know. Keep me small. Keep me true. Keep me kind. It is astonishing how many storms pass when you do not build a sail for them. Softness is not the absence of strength. It is strength with manners. And humility, real humility, has the best manners I've met. It holds the door. It learns your name. It leaves the room better than it found it. If you remember nothing else from this long confession, remember this: humility is not a trick to get honor. It is a way to find God in rooms you once tried to conquer. There are apologies you give once, and there are apologies you keep learning how to live. I wrote to the team again, months later, not because I had failed them anew, but because gratitude grows better when watered. I thanked Jonah for teaching me to ask questions that outlived the meeting. I thanked May for the circles she drew and the safety they made. I thanked Eric for the email that hurt and helped and held a boundary I needed. They each wrote back in the voices I had come to love. Jonah with a paragraph of quiet clarity, May with a smile I could hear, Eric with 2 lines that felt like a benediction. The world will not always give you such replies. It does not have to. You can still practice the apology that isn't marketing. I want what is right for you, even if what is right for you is not me at the center. I once believed that apology was surrender. Now I see it is architecture. It makes room where there was none. If you are listening in the aftermath of a hard Wednesday, if the email came, or the door clicked, or your reflection looked like someone you do not admire, hear this as a blessing, not a verdict. May your anger cool into clarity, not cruelty. May your gifts learn their proper weight. May your sentences shorten until truth can fit inside them. May the rooms you enter breathe a little easier because you forgot to perform and remembered to love. May you find the courage to apologize without a stage and the grace to receive correction without a scar. May you be small enough for wonder and sturdy enough for honor when it comes, as it always does after humility. And when pride knocks like a familiar guest, may you be busy setting another place at the table for someone else. He fired me on a Wednesday. I do not bless the wound by pretending it did not hurt. I bless the God who met me there with a sentence and a silence and a different ending than the one I had rehearsed. I have learned to love something better than being right. Being part of a story where other people shine, where the room is large, where a verse as old as dust can still make modern light. Humility comes before honor. I carry it now the way you carry your keys, ordinary, essential, a small shape that opens doors. If the story finds you in a waiting place, take a breath. Ask what pride wants to hide. Then step toward the light that makes room for others. That is where God keeps meeting me. I think it is where He will meet you, too.